You know, folks, there's so much talk these days about riders riding and essentially racing together during the week to kind of replicate the intensity and the pace of race day. Yeah, that's just a lot of talk. It's not the same as when you actually go racing and put a whole lot on the line in Monster Energy Supercross. With that, let's review Atlanta and Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Of course, this all brought to you by Racetech and Gold Valves. Revalve kit in a box. Suspension will be plusher but have better bottoming resistance. There's more traction, and it's all designed, engineered, and made in the USA. You can win a set of Gold Valves for yourself. Check out the information beneath this video. Send them an email, sign up, swag bag, Gold Valves, win it every week. So thanks to those guys for backing us. Now let's talk about those battles during the week. So much is said about the Alden Baker's factory and the riders that ride together during the week. In this case, it'd be Marvin Musquin and Cooper Webb. They've been doing a lot of laps together. Basically during this race season, Marvin missed a lot of time during the off season. They had a big moto, according to Marvin, even on Tuesday. But for all the work they do during the week to try to replicate the conditions of a race, Marvin said it's not the same. The intensity is different. The whole atmosphere is different in a race. And he said it really wasn't like when he was following Cooper Webb and trying to figure out a way around him in this main event in Atlanta. It didn't feel anything like it does during the week. The track is just that much different. There's more lines in a racetrack. It breaks down in different ways. Even the fact that there's tough blocks changes the way they have to attack the track and really can't work the edges. Which means, as much as they do during the week, executing in the race is really the difference between the guy that wins and the guy that, in Marvin's case, finished third. For a while, Marvin was closing on Cooper Webb, who had gotten the whole shot. For a while, it looked like he might even pass him. He was trying to set something up in the whoops. And he came so close to setting something up that at one point, they ran into each other. Marvin lost some ground. He closed back up. But there was a horseshoe turn in the sand, and it absolutely ruined whoever wasn't leading the race. Marvin would get roosted. He'd have to pull a tear off. Then he made a mistake trying to change his line in the sand and avoid that, and that allowed Blake Baggett to take over second. Baggett was able to close on Webb. Baggett was able to put pressure on. Baggett would get roosted in the sand and drop back. So that sand section kind of bailed Cooper out in a way, but we've seen what Cooper Webb does, man. When the money's on the line, the points are on the line in the main events and the tracks break down, he's usually able to execute perfectly. I don't know if during the week in the motos with Marvin and Zach Osborne and Jason Anderson when he's back in there, I don't know if he's always winning those, but he has won 5 of these main events this year and continues to stretch the points lead. I know it seems crazy. I guess I'm driving a Webb wagon, or at least I'm on it. But once again, I'm going to say this is how championships tend to look. But there is a bit of a curveball. Daytona is coming. We'll see how that affects the proceedings. You can bet that Marvin and Cooper will be riding together on a Daytona-like track at the Baker's factory this week. But I guess, as similar as they try to make it, it won't feel the same like it would if they're going to be battling in the main event next week. But a couple other riders would like to get back up there at Daytona. They're going to need to. Ken Roczen, his rhythm in the very first rhythm lane right off the start wasn't as good as the riders in front of him. He lost a few positions. He found himself in 5th behind Aaron Plessinger. Could not figure out a way around. Not much passing on this track tonight. He lost a lot of ground. Plessinger eventually crashed in the sand, and Kenny was able to get around him. But by then, he was about 11 seconds back in the lead group, so he ends up with a distant 4th. And Eli Tomac, we thought maybe he was back with a dominant type of performance at the Triple Crown last week in Detroit. He was 13th on lap 1, finished outside the top 5 tonight. Tomac now has 3 of the last 4 races with finishes outside the top 5 with a win sandwiched in between. So he's rapidly losing some ground in the championship. I know. Championship starts at Daytona. These guys got to turn it around. They got to turn it around quickly. Now back to that theme of riders riding together during the week. This was the big 250 East-West showdown here in Atlanta. And you had Austin Forkner, points leader, Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki over here in the East. And his teammate, Adam Cianciarulo, over here, points leader in the West. And those guys, they ride together a lot. They both spent a lot more time in California this year than in previous years. So they're at the Pro Circuit Test Track measuring each other all the time. But Adam said, okay, maybe it's a little like that. But no, man, it's a race. It doesn't really feel the same as it does during the week. And for that matter, Chase Sexton was in the mix early. He was, the last couple years, riding with Cianciarulo in Florida at the Moto Sandbox. Again, Adam said it didn't really feel anything like that once they were in a race situation. There's just so much more intensity in a race. And intensity-wise, Forkner and Sexton had it early. They pulled away from Cianciarulo, running 1-2. You could see the determination of Sexton to finally get that first win, but it might have been too much. He started to fade the second half of the race, lost a lot of ground, maybe just blew himself up trying to run Forkner down. Halfway through, Cianciarulo got everyone in his sights. He quickly got Sexton, then he closed in on Forkner. Everyone was anticipating this big battle between the teammates and the points leaders in the two coasts. There really wasn't much of one. Adam made quick work of Austin and the Whoops, took off from there. Dylan Ferrandis then passed Forkner, took over second. Ferrandis kept Cianciarulo honest, but Cianciarulo wins, thus finally proving he said at the beginning of the year he wanted to be a different type of rider. This time he was. He was the patient one. He's the one that didn't make the mistakes. He figured out lines. He figured things out. He rode like a veteran, and he wins the East-West shootout with Ferrandis second. As for Forkner, well, it's become a tradition here. Every week he has a big crash in practice. He did have two of them, one very big one in the Whoops today in Atlanta, and he said at that point, he's like, I'm just going to jump the Whoops in the night show. I'm going to go as fast as I can go. If someone's going faster, they can have it. And that's exactly where he got passed by Ferrandis and Cianciarulo, and he didn't even seem that bothered by it. He still stretches his points lead in the East, finishing up in third. So there's a little lesson. Forkner and Cianciarulo, they ride together in California at the test track. Doesn't feel the same when it's all on the line in a race. Webb and Muscan, they ride together in Florida, the Baker's Factory. Doesn't feel the same when they're in the intensity of a race. Blake Baggett rides by himself at El Chupacabra Ranch. Whatever he's doing there seems to be working great. Another good ride for him in second. Baggett's going to be good at Daytona, too. Going to be exciting. Cooper Webb still has that look of a champ. But anything can happen, right? We're only halfway through. See you at Daytona.